Childhood neglect cases are increasing in Indiana, and many state agencies point to the rise in opioid addiction. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Jill Sheridan takes a look at the services these children are relying on and some of the challenges facing these youngest affected by the opioid crisis.
Child neglect is defined as a type of abuse where people can lose custody of their children because they can't provide the necessary care. Zoe Meisberger's parents couldn't care for her because of their addiction. In 2015, there were 17,491 children in need of services, or CHINS, cases filed in Indiana. This is a nearly 23% increase over the previous year and a 97% increase over the past 10 years. Chief Justice of the Indiana Supreme Court, Loretta Rush, addressed this increase in this year's State of the Judiciary.
To be clear, these are not cases of juvenile delinquency where the child has broken the law. These are cases of abuse and neglect.
That's what happened to Paula Meisberger's youngest daughter, Brooke. She became addicted to opiates after a doctor prescribed pain medication post-pregnancy.
I knew something was going on with Brooke, but I felt like she was being over-medicated by her doctor. She was battling postpartum depression, and so I thought it was that. I had no idea that it was heroin.
In 2013, Meisberger was on vacation when she got the call that police arrested Brooke and her husband after they found them passed out in a car where one of their friends had overdosed. Baby Estelle was in the back seat.
Being so far away, my first thing was, I just wanted Estelle. She was in the car. Another guy had died in the car.
Estelle was only 8 months old at the time. Zoe was 3. Old enough to remember times when her mother and father were using, and once she opened up to a court advocate while playing with a toy.
She told the CASA worker that one time it was just a tiny little mouse, and she said, the baby keeps crying, but the mommy and daddy won't wake up.
Meisberger and her husband legally adopted 3 of their grandchildren, Estelle and Zoe, now 4 and 6, and their brother, 2-year-old Raiden, who was born heroin dependent. The increase in cases is a strain on the Department of Child Services, or DCS. The ACLU is currently suing DCS on behalf of a caseworker who is assigned to more than 40 children. Indiana law mandates the department must provide enough caseworkers so that the average caseload doesn't exceed 17 children. DCS says it's complicated. Cases overlap and are always in flux. Multiple people may be involved in a single case, and most workers realize their caseload may not be compliant with the standard. Court-appointed special advocates, or CASA workers, speak for and represent the best interests of abused or neglected children in the courts. Justice Loretta Rush said there are more than 5,000 children waiting for a CASA appointment. 75 of those children are in Monroe County. Director of CASA in Monroe County, Kristen Bechet, says their caseload has doubled in the past 2 years.
There are tremendous more cases. Cases are staying open much longer. I can tell you that it used to be that cases that were open due to some addiction of a parent used to be range about maybe 70-75% of our cases. Now it's a good 95% of our cases.
CASA Director Bechet says Indiana's child abuse laws are too weak, and she would like to see stricter policies in place and more support for prevention programs. Indiana law says everyone who suspects abuse or neglect of a child should report to the Child Abuse Hotline. But the process of identifying abuse is difficult and determining intervention is complicated. Susie's Place provides a safe place for children to be interviewed to determine next steps. Executive Director and founder Emily Perry says they're also seeing a rise in cases related to opioid addiction.
Sometimes that means kids are staying at home, and sometimes that means kids aren't able to stay at home to ensure their safety. But what we do know is we will never ever be able to investigate our way out of this crisis. What we know about kids that are living in households where there's a lot of abuse and neglect is that they're experiencing trauma on a very significantly high level.
Perry says the cycle of addiction is troubling.
So what we're seeing is, kids that have been struggling in a home where drugs are prevalent are those same kids that are sometimes drawn into drugs themselves.
She says resources, prevention, intervention, and treatment all have to be part of the solution. The Supreme Court's annual report says termination of parental rights has also increased by 18%. DCS is federally mandated to make all attempts to reunify a child with their parents, but that wasn't going to work for Paula Meisberger, who insisted if she was going to take custody of the children, it was going to be permanent.
Our kids need a voice, and until they put more tougher laws in place, these kids don't have a say. Why do these little ones have to suffer? And how are we breaking the cycle there?
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Jill Sheridan.
DCS is asking for an additional $50 million from the Indiana legislature to cover the growing number of abuse and neglect cases.